Hi, I'm Doug Boles, president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thank you for listening to Behind the Bricks. We're excited to bring you this exclusive and entertaining content about the world's greatest racetrack. Keep listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey, Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans, Doug Boles here with you for another episode of Behind the Bricks. And obviously, you can tell we are not at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway right now, but behind me are all kinds of connections to the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I'm at Crown Hill Cemetery right here in the heart of Indianapolis, basically at 38th Street and Michigan Road. This cemetery has been here since 1864. Lots of famous people buried here. President Harrison is buried here. 3 vice presidents buried here. Governors from all over, including Vermont and Kentucky, not just Indiana, but more importantly, many of those folks who helped craft and build the Indianapolis Motor Speedway are right here inside this place, including Carl Fisher and his mausoleum. You're going to get a chance with us today on Behind the Bricks to see some of those folks and see some of the places that we may never get to see again. So we're now actually inside the gates here at Crown Hill Cemetery. I'm joined by David Rick, who's the president of the cemetery, also the foundation. We'll tell you more about that later, but active cemetery, all kinds of things happen here in these 555 acres.
They do. We have over close to 250,000 people buried here. We are an active cemetery. People are being buried here every day. And we're also an accredited arboretum. So you can come out here. There's some history, there's some nature, especially on a beautiful day like today. So
let's walk for a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about motorsport, but sure. There's so much more here. You've got somebody from every single war from the Revolutionary War here. Yep. The founder or the inventor of Sudoku is actually buried here, which is really crazy. The founder of Target. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff that you wouldn't know.
People. Presidents, vice presidents, governors from Indiana, and governors not from Indiana. The founder of Target, like we mentioned. I mean, there's just so many people, and obviously the names that Indianapolis is famous for, right? The Eli Lilly, and you drive down 37 and you see Benford Avenue, all these Indianapolis names, and so many great stories from the city, the state, and even our country are right here.
Public enemy number 1.
Yes, sir. Public enemy number 1 is right down the street from us.
So that's pretty cool. But what's really cool, so even race fans can come out here because there's so many dozens of starters in the Indy 500, but tons of people who have a connection to the Speedway, to early automotive history, that raced at the Speedway, and that's why we're here today.
That's why we're here. So we're going to take you around and show you a few spots. We've got over 60 plus racing legends on our tour, but we're going to show you a few spots, even some winners, and maybe even run into the founder of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway while we're here.
That sounds great. Well, let's go wander around on this beautiful day. So no tour of this cemetery is a tour without starting with the builders of the first winning car at the Indianapolis 500, the Marmon. So the Marmon family is here. The Marmon Wasp, Howard Marmon is here. And David, I noticed there's a little plaque on here. It says number 9 and Marmon, the flags. Yep. You guys have a way for fans just to come out and they can give a tour themselves and hear a lot of information here.
They absolutely can. Back in 2019, we did this medallion project. We started this medallion project, and we marked all of our racing legends with a medallion by at their gravesite. We have actually an app you can use. You can go online, and it's a self-guided tour, and it's actually voiced by a lot of the voices that you probably have heard of, in Bob Jenkins and Donald Davidson, Laura Steele, Jake Query. They all lended their voice to this tour. So you go around, you learn about these racing legends, you find their markers, you listen a little bit about them, and you go find the next one.
So you can start right here at the Marmon family's area, or maybe at number 1, wherever that is, but we may find out. But that's how it works here. Right here, we're in the middle of the cemetery, right here with Howard Marmon, the Marmon family, the winners and builders of the first car to win the Indianapolis 500, the Marmon Wasp. So it's not just the yard of bricks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There is a final finish line right here in Crown Hill Cemetery, and it's really part of a longer-term project to celebrate those men and women who are buried here, who have helped us build the Indy 500 and the Speedway into what it is today. David, talk a little bit about the projects that have led to this final finish line.
Sure, yeah. This was a project we did with the Indiana Racing Memorial Association. The idea came in 2016, and in 2017, we had the sign installed that just just denotes the fact that there are so many racing legends here. 2018, we laid our final finish line here. I believe you were part of that as well. And then in 2019, the medallions that we saw, like the one by Marmon, we launched that project. And then in 2022, we released the self-guided tour that is voiced by so many of those that we know from the Speedway today.
So the bricks right here include the names of the 4 founders of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They didn't know that 108 runnings coming up, they'd be still having an Indianapolis 500. It's pretty neat. Those are original bricks throughout here, and they've been brought over here for this final finish line.
Yep.
When we think about names of famous people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the first that come to mind, A.J. Foyt, Al Unser Sr., Rick Mears, and now Helio Castroneves. But let's broaden that out a little bit. There's Michael Schumacher, there's Jeff Gordon, there's Jimmy Johnson. Famous names, but one name stands above all those in terms of wins at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and starts. Johnny Aiken started 41 races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He won 15 of them. He led the first lap of the first Indianapolis 500 in 1911, sat on the pole in 1916, was a relief driver twice. Pretty amazing.
Yes.
But his counterpart, Cannonball Baker's here too.
Cannonball Baker is here as well, yeah. And in fact, Cannonball Baker won the first ever race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Wasn't an automobile race, wasn't an Indy 500, but he won that first race at the Motor Speedway.
Motorcycle race in August of 1909. So those are 2 of the famous people, both buried here, but other drivers are here as well.
Oh, sure. I mean, a lot of people know the Hurtubise family, right?
Yes.
And Bettenhausen is another great name here. So, yeah, there's all sorts of connections here at Crown Hill to the Motor Speedway.
And certainly Carl Fisher, but all 4 of the founders are here.
All 4 of the founders are here, Fisher, Newby, Allison, and Wheeler. They all are here, not right by Fisher, but they are right down the road from them. You can visit them all when you're here.
So there it is, the most winningest driver at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 41 starts, 15 wins, Johnny Aiken right here. While he didn't ever compete at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway or in the Indy 500 as a driver, Charlie Wiggins was one of those pioneers in our sport. He was an African-American race car driver known for his mechanical skills. He helped work on cars at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He was a multi-time winner of the Golden Glory Sweepstakes, a 100-mile race that took place at the Indiana State Fairgrounds and was considered one of the toughest races that drivers could do back in the day. So there are 3 winners that are buried here at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis. 1919 winner Howdy Wilcox is buried right here. We're standing right next to his tombstone. You can also see Louis Schneider, 1931 winner, and our co-winner from 1941, Floyd Davis, who won along with Murray Rose, who was one of our 3-time winners. All 3 are here. Yeah. So, David, you have any favorite stories? You're a history buff. Any fun stories about Howdy Wilcox?
Well, you know what's great is that all 3 of our winners here have some interesting stories, right? So, Howdy Wilcox, he was the first American to win it since 1912 when he won. And something came over the band that was there that day, and they started playing Back Home Again in Indiana. And turns out they started one of the best traditions that we have out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. We love Back Home Again in Indiana, and the Little 500 gets started later on by his son. So there's a lot of connections there. So any Louis Schneider stories you have?
Yeah, so Louis Schneider, not only did he win the race, he actually has the worst finish in the Indianapolis 500 history, and it wasn't 33rd, it was actually 42nd in 1933.
Back in the day when they had more than 33 cars, It's kind of crazy. And then, of course, Floyd Davis, who, Murray Rose wins 3 Indy 500s, so he gets a lot of credit.
He does.
Folks oftentimes forget that Floyd Davis is a co-driver in that win in 1941.
Yeah, so Floyd Davis is kind of the asterisk in the winners of the Indianapolis 500, right? So Floyd Davis was taken out of the car in lap 72, I believe. And the pole sitter that year and his teammate, Rose, was put into the car. He drove it to victory. Floyd Davis was named as a co-winner, and he is the only winner to never lead a lap.
That's a really interesting story there, but you're right. Floyd Davis does sort of get that asterisk, just like Laura Coram and Joe Boyer, the other co-winners that won the Indianapolis 500. But you can see those 3 Indy 500 winners and where they're buried here at Crown Hill Cemetery. So usually every May I show up here with an event car that has the Indy 500 logo on it, park down the hill here in front of Carl Fisher's mausoleum and take a photo. It's my way of saying thank you to a guy who had such vision, not just for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500, but for South Beach, the Lincoln Highway, the Dixie Highway. The guy was a genius.
Yep.
Carl Fisher is buried here along with some family members, and another cool story that we'll talk about in a minute. But this just went through a little bit of a restoration project. And that's really where helping the foundation makes a lot of sense.
It did, yeah. So we did a lot of restoration work here on this Fisher Mausoleum. It's over 100 years old, right? And so just like your house, right, you got to take care of these things. So we did a lot of work with the Fisher Mausoleum and the cleaning and the rejointing just to make it, first of all, it looks nice, but it's practical in that, it keeps the water out and it keeps it looking good for another 150 years.
So Carl Fisher and family members buried in there. A pilot, J.J. Hammond, British Air Force, but really a New Zealander. Was the first New Zealander pilot to get a pilot's certificate. Was actually killed here in Indiana near the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And his widow went back home, and Carl Fisher said, why don't you keep your remains here till after World War I? Never came back and got it.
Never came back and got him, and he's still here today.
Which is pretty amazing. Well, this is it. Could we go in?
Do you want to?
100% I want to.
Absolutely, let's go.
Well, let's check it out. This was built over 100 years ago. Carl Fisher is right here. Family members. Captain Hammond's up here. This is pretty amazing that the founder and first president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is still here in Indianapolis.
Still here in Indianapolis, him and the other three that were with him. So he's got some family members that are all here, and we'll call this their home for eternity.
That's great. And he had a young son that passed away really early on. I know that was one of the things I've read about, how he was just wanting to really get a chance to be with his son, and obviously gets to do that now. So pretty powerful. This has all gone through a restoration project, stained glass. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful job, and it's pretty cool to see Carl Fisher's name.
Carl Fisher here. Just a beautiful piece of artwork, really, too.
Absolutely. So as you can see, there's a lot of history at Crown Hill Cemetery. David, Rick, thank you so much for bringing us along, including the voice of the 500. So many of us fell in love with the Indy 500 listening to those voices. Sid Collins, Paul Page, and Bob Jenkins, some of the most famous voices to ever call races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is actually buried here as well. And you can actually hear Bob's voice on the app when you're here on your tour, but we can do it from home even.
You can do it from anywhere, right? So if you go to our website, crownhillfoundation.org, you can download the app, you can take the tour, you can learn about all sorts of different racing legends, the ones that we talked about today, and so many more that are here. And a lot of the stops are voiced by Bob Jenkins and others that you would be very familiar with. Come, learn about the racing legends, and certainly one of them is sitting right here.
Absolutely. So I really want to thank everybody at Crown Hill Cemetery and Crown Hill Cemetery Foundation for allowing us this really unique way of looking at the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500 away from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's a sort of behind the bricks. It started almost 3 years ago with Donald Davison and Bob Jenkins telling us stories from the heart that meant something to them and how the Speedway connected them to all of you. Next time, we're going to have more fun on Behind the Bricks. Thank you, fans, for listening to this episode of Behind the Bricks. We look forward to bringing you more exciting content about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway soon.